Everybody would bring a Nesco.
Yeah.
Clean up the whole place.
Time next month. This is just
Things they
a
get
presentation.
I think so. Hanging off the table, and the only thing that would.
I will call the school board meeting to order, and would you please rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And I will ask the clerk to do roll call.
Christopher Abel,
Here.
David Bowman,
Here.
Dick Hansen,
Here.
Ann Wilson.
Here.
Mary Lofi Blahnik. Present. Keith Shaw,
Here.
Carrie Trask.
Here. 7 here and accounted for. First order of business tonight is the facility consolidation recommendation presentation. That's a big way.
That is. Thanks, Mr. Hanson, and good evening to everyone. Tonight, our team brings forward recommendations that were not made lightly. Over the past several months, we've devoted countless hours to analyzing student enrollment data, reviewing facility needs, studying financial realities, and exploring every possible scenario. This work has been thorough, collaborative, and grounded in one question. What is the best path forward for the Manitowoc Public School District to not only sustain itself, but to truly become great? Great organizations don't become great by avoiding difficult decisions. They rise to challenges, face hard truths, and choose a direction that ensures long-term success. For the MPSD, the truth is clear. We cannot continue to operate business as usual in a district that has declined by nearly 1,200 students in the past couple of decades. Our structure simply no longer aligns with our enrollment, our finances, or our aspirations for student achievement. The recommendations that will be delivered to you tonight by the district administrative team do include school closings that reflect the reality of our circumstances and the responsibility we have to plan for a stable, strong, and sustainable future for our students. As we begin the presentation tonight, I would just ask that the board, we've sort of designed this presentation to try to get through it. So when you have questions, just jot them. And then at the end, there's plenty of time, of course, for any questions and comments and concerns you may have. The goal for us is to make sure that the board has all of the information necessary to make the decisions that need to be made. So
Mr. Superintendent, you're saying that we
don't want to get interrupted.
can't ask questions after?
No.
Like what you're doing right now.
No offense, but by observation, the board tends to maybe go a little off when we do that. We got to stay on focus. So, at the end, we'll have lots of opportunities for questions. So.
Thank you for your honesty.
I am honest, always. Okay. So, having said that, I turn it over to Stacy.
Thanks so much. So as we share our presentation with you tonight, we want to just start with our existing conditions and where we're at, because it's always good to remind ourselves where we're at and why we're moving forward in the direction that we're moving. So this slide is just a repeat of a slide that you've already seen from the Facilities Advisory Committee that talks about our existing conditions. So we know that our buildings are aging. We know that we have declining enrollment. We know we have some operational and educational inefficiencies, and that we have excess space. So this is our current reality of where we're at to know where we need to do to move forward. The next slide has information about our current structure of our schools on that. So you can see our elementary and our middle schools listed here. A couple of things I just want you to note in our current elementary and middle school makeup. When you look at our elementary schools, the top 6 schools that are listed there, our range in population from those schools is the smallest at 202 students, and our largest is 356 students. So about a 150 student difference in those 2 buildings. So we have a discrepancy in sizes of our buildings. The other piece is the free and reduced column that's there. If you look at that, one of the things that you'll notice too is that some discrepancies we have there as well. So we have a school that has 41% free and reduced lunch percentage and another one that has 73%. So we took these numbers into account when we were looking at how should we restructure our school district, where should students go, how do we want to create equity amongst our school districts. The number on this slide indicates all students with disabilities. There is an updated chart that you may see that has excluded students that have speech and language only IEPs. We know that in elementary school, that's often where a lot of students have speech and language needs. So there, if you do see a different chart with lower numbers, that's because those speech and language students have been excluded from that. But just in terms of students with disabilities, we have those numbers for you as well. Same thing with Wilson and Washington at the bottom. You can see our two middle schools, again, a difference in size from 478 to 566. And then you look at that free and reduced lunch percentage as well, a big discrepancy there between those two buildings. So we use this information moving forward when we want to create equitable learning experiences for all of our kids. The next slide I'm not going to read to you. Again, this is a duplicate slide from our Facility Advisories Committee that they presented. But again, this was really what our executive team was tasked with, right? This is what the team said we need for our district and what our district needs moving forward. So in terms of student enrollment, equitable experiences, consolidation. So these statements grounded our work for how we were going to make recommendations for the board to look at tonight. And you'll see these statements referenced at the top of the other slides to show you where we worked on each of those things.
As we move through this presentation, we'd like to create some context for our recommendations. And the context is simply this: how did we arrive at our recommendations? And to sum it up in a real simple way, we use data. We looked at current enrollment trends up to and including population densities of our district, our zones within our district, and our current school structured zones. We looked at building repair costs across the district, which included monies that we have committed to our buildings based on the plan that we had for our capital borrowing of the $25 million, as well as started looking at other opportunities for investment with other dollars. We've looked at future residential expansion. We've met with the city planning department to find out where things were happening in the city as far as residential expansion, so that we can make the most informed decision possible as far as district lines and boundaries for students enrollment into our schools. And then lastly, transportation implications. We know that it's very important to make sure that all of our kids have an opportunity that are eligible to receive transportation to the schools in the most convenient manner for our folks.
I'm going to start us off by talking about our elementary recommendations. We are recommending that we create 4 K-4 elementary buildings. The first part of that recommendation is that we would close and sell Madison Elementary. As you know, this is our smallest elementary school, and we are not able to increase our student enrollment to equal that of the other schools. The cost of making the needed repairs and updates at Madison is $2.5 million. The next part of our elementary recommendation is that we would close and decommission Jackson Elementary School. The cost estimate to make the needed repairs at Jackson is $4.1 million. We have a 2-part recommendation for Riverview, and the first part of that recommendation is that we would move the K-4 students to the Stengel building. The Stengel building is situated in a pretty densely populated area, and it is adjacent to the Madison boundary area. And another part of that recommendation, if you saw the map, is that the Madison students would then move and join the Riverview students at the Stengel building. So that would really become 2 buildings in one. The second part of that recommendation is that the 4 K students remain at the Riverview building. They're currently housed in half of that building. And then we are very excited about the possibility of working with a daycare center in Manitowoc to have a partnership to have them run a daycare out of that second half of the building. We would like to then be able to offer all-day 4K to all of our MPSD families, which is something that we wanted to be able to do for a while. The way that that would work would be our current 4K teachers would continue to run an AM and a PM section. So they would do what they're doing now, so it's not additional staff. And the second half of the day, the students would be going to the daycare. And so that would be a collaboration that we would have with them, and that would be an investment that we would choose to make. If families only want to do a half a day of 4K, they don't want a full day, that still would be something that we would offer. By having 4 elementary schools that are at full capacity, we see some real advantages to that. By having 3 or 4 section schools, we're able to have consistent class sizes, improved collaboration for staff, improved PLC opportunities. Sharing of students during intervention time is much easier when you've got multiple teachers to do that with. And there's less shifting of staff. So when you have a school like Madison that has 1 section at 3rd grade and then 2 sections at 4th grade and that kind of thing that happens, we have teachers that have to shift to different grade levels throughout the years. So, and at the end of the day, it would really be about offering equitable opportunities for students at all 4 of the schools. So that is our elementary recommendation.
The next recommendation that came forward from the Community and Staff Facilities Committee was that to look at reconfiguring our grade level makeup at the middle school level. So our team was tasked with digging into what a 5-6 building and a 7-8 building could look like as we would consider reconfiguration. Most of us know that middle school is a unique and critical developmental period in a student's educational career. So there's a lot that goes into looking at our neighboring partnering districts who have implemented non-traditional middle school programming. There are a number of districts that have 5-8 programming. We have been working closely with some districts that have 5-6 buildings, 7-8 buildings, and we'll continue to work through that process should the recommendation be to move forward with this. When we're considering the condition and structure of our middle school existing facilities, as well as looking at what those different models are, we've learned through some research that there's some real advantages to having a 5-6 intermediate building, which would be housed at Wilson Middle School, and a 7-8 middle school building that would be housed at Washington Middle School. The 5-6 model, so preserving that pre-adolescent age group of having 5th and 6th graders together really serves as an opportunity to bridge elementary school and middle school. So 5th graders currently in our model are walked by their teacher in a straight line down the hallway to the lunchroom. They are walked to their art class. They are walked outside to recess and supervised. In our current model, we take our 5th graders at the end of 5th grade who are used to these very structured transitions in a building, and we dump them in 6th grade and we say, here, navigate this really big building. You now have 6 teachers, you now have a cafeteria, you now go outside for recess, and there's teachers standing in the hallway and supervising that, but it's very different than elementary school. What this model allows for is very, not only socially and developmentally age-appropriate structured lessons, but it allows the opportunity for teachers to focus on executive functioning and independent skills. So organizing time, managing sort of a planner and homework. It also allows for students to learn how to slowly transition. So they wouldn't have as many transitions as a typical middle school student would. They would have house models, they would have a number of teachers, but they would learn how to transition and navigate that building more independently, which would then again be able to set them up for what a more independent model of the 7-8 building looks like. If you know, again, you may or may not know, but our bell schedule at this middle school buildings there are currently 3 bell schedules. There's a 6th grade bell schedule, a 7th grade bell schedule, and an 8th grade bell schedule, and there are no bells. So there are students and teachers that are navigating, transitions throughout the day without the auditory sign that it's time to transition class. Because of different state requirements, academic requirements, there's nuances to those schedules. So having 5th and 6th graders in a building because of the similar state academic requirements, allows for us to be able to implement a consistent schedule that our 5th and 6th grade teachers and students could follow. So then moving on to the middle school, or the 7-8 building, we have an opportunity again to focus our social skills programming and developmental skills and strategies that are appropriate for then those early teen years together, that keep, our early teens developmentally in a spot where they can be together. It also allows us to focus more on high school readiness and preparation, foster more independent opportunities for students that transition into that building. There are academic opportunities that come with aligning those 2 grade levels together. We can have some more advanced coursework. We can have opportunities for students who are accelerated to be able to have coursework that is aligned to those accelerated needs. We still have opportunities to have interventions for students who need that support. And then I think the most exciting part of this planning is that we have an opportunity to increase elective and choice opportunities for our students in the 7th and 8th grade building. Because of the middle school model, when we adjusted to that, we had to eliminate, based on the constraints of having 3 different bell schedules and different academic requirements at the middle school level, we had to eliminate another of choice and elective options for students in the Manitowoc Public School District that we had when operating a junior high model. So this allows us at the 7-8 building to really enrich choice options for our students in that building, which we have had conversations in planning, and should this go forward, we have elective teams that are very excited about those opportunities, which then just promote and support more opportunities at the high school, because we're now developing feeder programs to go into the high school electives, which is an exciting opportunity for students. We also have considered and heard feedback about concerns around transportation. We currently have a shuttle system that operates at our middle schools. We're working closely with Brant to be able to expand those shuttle opportunities. So essentially, you could have a 5th grade student, a 7th grade student, and a 9th grade student. And parents could drop all of their students off at Wilson Middle School. The 5th grade student would stay for school. The 7th grader would be able to hop on a shuttle bus with other 7th and 8th graders over to Washington Middle School. And the 9th grader would be able to hop on a shuttle bus over to Lincoln High School. So we already have those shuttle opportunities in existence. We would just expand those opportunities to make sure that we are eliminating any transportation barriers for families and for students. One point that we also have heard is that there's a concern about adding another transition, again, at that very critical middle school age. Research will indicate that the biggest challenge and the largest contributor to the middle school dip, which is a real thing, there's a middle school academic dip that happens for students in 6th grade. The largest contributing factor to that is the social transition piece. We take, again, students that have 65th grade friends in their elementary school, and then we now put them in a building where there are 300 plus friends at that grade level. And then we ask them to transition again to the high school in 9th grade, where we're now, increasing the class size again with the number of students. And socially, that's very challenging for students, especially for our students that may have any sort of anxiety, mental health issues, students on the autism spectrum, and just regular kids as well. Our neurotypical children also struggle with that social piece. So by bringing all of our students in the MPSD together in 5th grade, we are in fact eliminating some of that, so those social challenges that come with navigating a physical building change. It's also it's much easier for us to control transition opportunities and provide transition opportunities that make navigating a physical building change much easier than it is for us to control the social pieces that come with those transitions. So essentially, we are eliminating the social challenges that come with transitioning through middle and high school by bringing all of our students that will graduate together in fifth grade. And again, we can provide opportunities for students to feel comfortable navigating a building, but the social piece, we feel strongly about that supporting students. And again, hopefully mitigating the effects of that middle school academic dip that is a very real factor. Other parts of our recommendation that have been brought up, but we want to make sure that we're clearly communicating about is our alternative learning programs. So the Stangel Learning Community right now is home to approximately 180 students, high school students that are on various alternative pathways to earning their diploma. When we reconfigured the last time, we took Stangel, which was a former elementary school, and we took all of our alt ed kids from the McKinley building and we put them in a former elementary school. That did not feel great. So we have an exciting opportunity to partner with UW Green Bay Manitowoc campus to have ample space for all of our alternative high school programs that are currently housed at the Stangel Learning Community. The benefit to that is that it's in a facility and a building where we currently house our GEDO2 program. We would have an opportunity to bring our 18 to 21-year-old special ed programs to that building, which is where they were. It is a very age-appropriate setting for our students who are pursuing an alternative pathway to a diploma. It feels way better than placing them in a recommissioned or decommissioned elementary school. It's a learning environment that is conducive to their needs and is a really high quality learning facility that we feel really good about the opportunity to partner with them. The next thing that I think I am most excited about and most passionate about is the opportunity by consolidating our buildings and our programs. We have an incredible opportunity to move and shift our special education staff and programming so that we have more special education teachers available in a building, which means we can have lower caseload sizes, which will attract and maintain staff. It also means that we can provide a continuum of services for students with disabilities in their home school. We currently have buildings right now that are home to some different types of special ed programming because we don't have the capacity to house things like programs for students with emotional behavioral disabilities or significant intellectual disabilities in every building. So we have to remove them from their home school and their peers and put them in a different school. This allows us to add additional special education staff that will go with their students from buildings as we merge learning communities and provide a continuum of services for all students in their home school. We feel really good about that opportunity. It also allows us to be able to, again, shift where our special education staff are currently and increase programming and staffing at our middle school buildings. Again, so we have manageable caseload sizes, we can improve and increase programming and services and supports for students, which ultimately is an increase and improvement in supports for staff who work with those students, because our special educators and our general educators work so closely together to support all of our students. So there's a great opportunity there for us to really meet the needs of students, variety of needs of students in their home schools.
Another area that I want to talk about is having a balanced instructional supports. And we're talking there about our EL students, our reading interventionists that we currently have, and instructional coaches, like just to have more of a balanced opportunity with those staff. Additionally, knowing that we would have some extra staff as part of this process, we would like to bring forward a recommendation in the future, if this moves forward, to have, to create math interventionist positions. We've talked about that before, but we definitely, that is a need that we have at all of our elementaries. We also like to have math interventionists functioning at the middle and high school levels as well. And then another area is just having reduced class sizes. This does give us an opportunity to look at the numbers that we have now. And again, because we have inconsistent number of teachers at grade levels at different schools, you can end up with, there was a year recently where you had to make a tough choice at Madison, as an example, with 28 kids in kindergarten. That's way too many, but you add a teacher and now you're down to 14 kids. And so that is something that we want to look at. We currently have at Jefferson and Franklin, both of those schools are AGR schools. And you've heard about that. We do bring reports to curriculum committee about that. We get some additional funding from the federal government for that program to have smaller class sizes. And that is about $450,000 that we get for both of those schools. So that's something that we thought about. That's a program that goes away if those schools aren't there, and we can't add schools to that. But what's nice about being a teacher at those schools is you have classes of less than 18, where at another school in our district, you could have 25 kindergartners in your room. So as part of this process, with the additional staff that we will have, we would really like to look at having that 18 students as a cap for kindergarten moving forward at all of our schools, not just at our 2 AGR schools. We think that's something that's important and something that this allows us to be able to do. So class sizes is something that we know isn't a big factor. It's the teacher that's the factor, but at the end of the day, it's much easier and pleasanter, that's not a word, much more pleasant, to have 18 little people sitting at your carpet than 25. So that's just something that we hope we'll be able to do.
So this slide is going to show you just the things that Heidi and Katie talked about in kind of a comprehensive way. So again, that creating equitable educational experiences was the goal, right? The committee set the boundaries for us of what they wanted, and then we did the work to try to make that happen. You'll notice that we talked about bringing 5th and 6th grade and 7th and 8th grade students together across the district. Again, that social transition that's eliminated by doing that. Consistent sections at the elementary school to enhance collaboration, what Heidi talked about as well. Some of our smaller schools may have sections of 1 or 2. It's really hard for a 3rd grade teacher when you only have nobody with you to help collaborate. Now you're going to have 3 or 4 other people with you on your team to collaborate. The other thing that was a big priority for us when we were looking at which schools to recommend closing, where kids should go to school, making those difficult decisions, our number one priority was what's going to cause the least disruption to kids and families. So how can we reduce the disruption? We didn't want to just put everybody in a bag, shake it up and say, here's where you're all going, and a whole bunch of different people have different schools to go to. So in this model that we're bringing forward, we have 36 zones in our district. Only 4 zones of students will be affected who are currently in a school that will be open next year that will have to go to a different school. So out of our 36 zones, 4 zones of a school that is open, those students will have to go to a different home school. It's about 106 students. So again, when we talk about disrupting families, disrupting neighborhoods, things like that, we try to do this with the least amount of disruption as possible. And it was like a jigsaw puzzle. We worked all sorts of angles, and we were pretty proud to come up with that low of a number. That was the best we could do. I also want to notice when I talked to you about that first slide with the chart, and we looked at some of the discrepancies in sizes. We talked about a 202 size of Madison compared to a 350 size of a different school. When you look at these elementary school numbers, you can see the difference in size is 50 kids. So the schools are all pretty equally sized. We were very proud of that fact. We are also very proud of the fact, if you look at the free and reduced lunch percentage, you can see that that's much more equitable across all of our buildings in terms of resources, in terms of diversity, in terms of making our schools look like the communities that they serve. Students with disabilities, like I shared with you, the numbers don't drastically drop with grade realignment, but there is an updated chart. So these numbers show students with disabilities excluding the speech and language students. So again, one of the things we wanted to make sure that was balanced was when Katie talked about that special education programming being equitable at all the buildings, that we didn't have one building that had 25% special education students and one that had 7%. So looking at that equity as well in terms of programming. You'll notice Wilson and Washington on there, and you may look at the size difference from Wilson and Washington and think, oh, it's 70 kids. That's kind of a little bit bigger of a number. The thing to remember is that's the biggest group that will go through Washington, because that 8th grade bubble is our biggest bubble. So that number at Washington in the following years will only continue to decline. So the number may.
684 to 603.
Okay. Yep, so there'll be a difference. I think the other thing to note too, when we talk about equity across our buildings and opportunities, you remember the Washington Wilson difference in free and reduced lunch was pretty drastic. If you look at it now, it's pretty exactly similar. Again, so it's bringing together our district to show it as a whole.
And with that configuration, it also makes all of our schools title eligible, which is an important factor to consider in terms of potential resources that we can get to supplement our kids, especially in reading, which we know we need. One of the recommendation statements that the committee felt very strongly about was to say to the district, we really think you should also employ some strategies that will help slow your decline and look at stabilizing and potentially even growing your student enrollment. So, of course, there's lots of different strategies, but we wanted to focus on just a few that really pertain to this particular topic in consolidation. The first bullet really talks about an opportunity to get our kids involved in our school system at the earliest age. When we think about some real data, last year, 33 families chose to do 4K outside of our district in other public school programs. This year, 5 families out of the 33 returned. We have to do better in 4K, which is why a huge piece of this is to utilize that space to the best of our ability to not only be very efficient with our staffing and how we run that program, but also look to make partnerships and potentially get students, who knows, potentially even as early as 2 years old someday, into our school so that they then can hopefully walk across the way to a 4K program that our district is operating. And we know based on our experience that when folks do choose us for 4K, they stay because we have an excellent program. In terms of co-curricular opportunities, we're also excited about the opportunity that our 5, 6, 7, 8 building provides to get our kids involved and feel more a part of their class and a part of their school community. Research is crystal clear that if kids have co-curricular opportunities outside of just their learning, that it impacts their achievement in a positive manner, which is of course one of the primary goals of our strategic vision. And then lastly, and Katie highlighted this when she talked about the 5, 6, 7, 8 and some of the advantages we see to moving in that direction. It really does provide us with an opportunity to have our kids taking more electives that feed in vertically in a planned way to our high school programming, which as a comprehensive Division I high school, we have some great content experts in these areas and fields that can help drive kids to experience new experiences and potentially unlock new passions and for their future. We also want to consider the physical and capital improvements. And what I hope you're getting from this presentation from our team is that this whole thing really isn't just about money. It's about learning and putting our district at a precipice of being great and doing great things for kids and improving their student achievement. And there are money pieces to this, but if you took a time clock of this presentation and you put it into percentages on what we talked about just now, I'm proud to say we talked mostly about teaching and learning and what's best for kids, which is why we're here. But there is money involved, and this slide potentially says it best. As we're considering doing the hard thing of consolidating, one of the primary benefits of doing that would be that we would be able to invest $6.6 million of the $25 million capital referendum into school buildings that we need to use. Folks, that's 26% of our entire referendum that was just passed by our community. And what a great showing this would be to our community of how our district utilizes dollars to maximize the improvements that need to be made for our kids to have the best learning environment possible. So this slide really does show that in a very stark way.
Moving to a 4 elementary school model, servicing grades K through 4, we project the following efficiencies: 12 fewer teaching positions, 32 fewer support staff positions. This number, the 32, is inclusive of clerical and custodial staff, instructional aides, and special education paraprofessionals. We are mindful of our duty to meet the maintenance of effort standards set by the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. We will analyze our staffing of special education for 26-27 and make reinvestments if necessary to meet those standards. Based on 25-26 budget allocations of non-staffing accounts, so things other than benefits and salaries, the district will save approximately $290,000 annually by running 2 fewer schools. Cuts to administrative staff are currently to be determined. In the next 12 months, the district will put this building, the central office, up for sale. And finally, to reiterate what Lee just talked about in terms of the referendum. $6.61 million in referendum funds that are meant for Jackson and Madison projects that were needed in the next few years can be reallocated to other buildings. And that is 26% of referendum funds.
And just to talk for 1 second about the recommendation to sell this building, we've talked a lot about a lot of excess space in this district, and we feel very strongly that we need to also find ways to be more efficient as a central office. And, you know, we can work out those, you know, as part of the recommendation, we have policies in place to sell buildings and property, and we work through that process with the finance and facilities. Lastly, we want to just focus on by no means do we think we're done if we do this. The work is really just beginning. It was very clear from the work of the facility advisory committees that the #1 priority of both committees independently was to have state-of-the-art facilities and quality learning environments for our kids. We believe that this step is the first step in doing that. We would suspend the committee's work for 6 months to do the necessary work that needs to be done to successfully complete the consolidation effort. And then we would be reinstating that group to do some very hard work. And that hard work will be focused on our secondary school buildings. Our secondary school buildings are 102, 95, and 90 respectively. I don't need to remind you of the CISA 10 report, the huge dollar amounts that need to be spent to get them up to par. We need to have conversations about the future of those schools and potentially other ways to educate our kids, perhaps in even new schools. But those decisions have to come from beginning in with the community. So what we would do, we really felt strongly that we had to have a staff group and a community group to do the work that we just did here. In talking with Mr. Hacker we think it's totally appropriate at this time to merge those groups together to have the conversation about our secondary schools, with the goal that that group bring options to the board and to the public in which we would like to conduct, when their work is completed, a community-wide survey that really will ask our community what their appetite is for the types of solutions that that committee comes up with. So we're excited about that work. We would get it started somewhere around July, hopefully. But we really do think that the timeline for that work is probably a lot less than what the timeline was for this work. This work really required us to do a lot of educating alongside of things with enrollment trends in our buildings and all of those things. That education piece has been done. Folks know where we stand. It's really going to be about looking into what does this community want as far as secondary school structures. So in closing, what I would just say is that I want to reiterate that every recommendation that was brought forward tonight from our team comes from a place of deep responsibility and careful thought. We recognize that no matter which schools were proposed for closure, there would be disagreement and emotion. That's completely understandable. But what we're really looking at here is what's best for our kids. And our students are depending on us to make decisions that ensure strong, high-quality schools for years to come. Our decisions are a part of leadership. We've assumed that. We know that you have to assume that now. But our team stands behind these plans, and we believe it's the best way forward for our district, and are doing our part to create a thriving Manitowoc, which we all desperately want. I would also like to mention that we had hard conversations with staff. And in those conversations that we had yesterday, my team and I, there were several takeaways. One is we need to take care of people. This is hard. This is really hard for some. We're talking about people who've spent their entire career in a school. We're talking about neighborhood schools. We're talking about a lot of things that this would change. But one thing that came out at both Madison and Jackson's staff meeting was feedback from staff, which is imploring this board to do this work efficiently, because the longer the cloud hangs over our community and our school district, the harder it is. So I close with that and open it up for any questions the board may have.
Okay, time out. Let's do it this way. Because I know you were all dynamic people, all 7 of you. Give me a number from 1 to 7.
7.
7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. David, you have the first question now. Here's what we're going to do. David's question will be asked. And then if anybody has anything related to what he said or an answer from any of the people that you're questioning, then we'll jump on it at that time. And the second question will go to Ms. Ann. David, you're up.
May I ask one clarifying thing of
Yes.
you, Mr. President?
Yes.
Does that mean we are to stay away from discussion and opinions until all the questions the board have
Yes.
are asked?
Right now, it's just questions.
Okay, thank you. Want to make sure.
I have no questions at this time because I've seen the presentation, I hear what they're saying, and it makes sense to me at this point. But as we talk further, I may have stuff that comes into the top.
Ann, you're up.
I do have one question. Heidi, you had mentioned about reduced class sizes. I guess my understanding is is it going to be more balanced class sizes? Because you mentioned the example of the 18, splitting into 214, because we are declining enrollment. We want to keep that focus on our students and staff to keep this. So I guess I wanted a clarification. Is it more balanced, or are we trying to reduce class size?
I think it's going to be reduced when it's balanced. But we are also talking about our kindergarten, specifically a grade level that we get concerned about, because we have had 24s, 25s, and 26s in the recent past. In fact, this year we have some higher numbers like that. So we want to, moving forward, be committed to keeping that number closer to 18
So that was specific example.
Of kindergarten, but I do believe that that's going to happen naturally when we have multiple sections.
Anything related to that? Mary, you're up.
Question for Heidi. On Katie's slide, she talked about transportation for secondary. Can you speak a little bit about what you've investigated for transportation for elementary?
Mr. Tennis,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah. So, first things first, we met with Brant a couple times through this process. Number one, most important question is, can we do this? And the answer is yes. The transportation for elementary schools will run similar routes to what they run now, but designed based on the map. And what happens now is there are drop-off and pickup points throughout that route that we have kids go to and get picked up and dropped off. It will essentially run the same. In a proposal that the Policy and Personnel Committee will get here in December about our school calendar, also highlights some school start time information that we will be proposing, which does impact our transportation, only in that the schools will start at closer times than what they do now. As a district, we've sort of allowed ourselves to be at the mercy of what the bus company sort of wanted the start times to be. And we really said, hey, as long as we're doing this, let's look at some research and let's see what the research says the best start times are for kids. And so the only difference in what's occurring right now and what would occur if that proposal goes through is that right now they run what we call double routes. So they would run a route, drop, and run a route and drop. What we're asking them to do would require single routes for each of these schools. But remember, we're going from 6 schools that require runs to 4 in terms of the elementary. And with the shuttle system at the middle level, that also proves to be highly efficient in terms of dollars.
So elementary kids aren't going to be stuck in a shuttle.
Correct.
That'll be right from their
Yep.
drop-off, pickup to
Yep.
their school.
Yeah, and one other thing I should mention is, as you're well aware, we have the 2-mile radius sort of policy for busing. But if you looked at the map closely, what you'd see is the, essentially the assumed Jackson students that would be attending in Franklin would have to cross the river. So there's a process within the state that you can designate certain areas as hazardous zones. We don't want to make it sound like it's dangerous, it's not. It just means that it's highly unlikely kids are gonna walk around the or, where there's bridges and whatnot. So we would follow up and through with the state. We need some collaboration with the county sheriff's department actually in order to get a letter of support to do that. But that would open up those transportation for kids even within that, for those areas. So in other words, the radius doesn't matter if it's a hazardous zone.
So they may be under 2 miles and then be able to get a bus now.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
And then I have more questions, but I think I have to wait.
Yes, you have to wait.
No stacking.
Oh, do you? Yeah, okay.
You have to wait. You can only ask one question.
Otherwise, Mr. Shaw, you're gonna be here a long time.
You have to wait till the rain stick comes.
Go ahead, Carrie.
Yeah, I'd like to say that I'm very impressed with the work that's been done on this and the thought that's gone in and the sort of the nice symmetrical results that come out of it. I must start by saying I lament the loss of Madison, which is the school with the largest number of free and reduced lunch kids and the school with the highest number of students with disability, and the only school we have that exceeds expectations. So that's a loss, and I was hoping that we could maybe move to be more like Madison. I mean, it has the most modest building as well. Even though it's got a nice view, it doesn't have a cafeteria, it doesn't have a number of facilities. So I was hoping that we could move to try to emulate some of the things that work there. But instead, we're getting all larger schools, all over 300. I mean, the smallest is going to be 302. But I guess I'm not sure reassured would be the exact right word, but I'm kind of glad that we're going to have smaller class sizes across the board, if that's possible. But my question is, under this plan, we have only one elementary school on the north side. And that it seems to me that the split here is, I guess I'll just say, what about if we kept Jackson open along with the school that now is not an elementary school but soon will be, the Stangl School, and then had Franklin and Jefferson be the South Side schools. I mean, I know that would re-rig the whole presentation. But I know that the main argument on Jackson is that it's going to cost $4 million to fix it up. But the fact is that seems to me we'd cut down on busing. Seems to me that we would be closer to being consistent with the neighborhood school concept, which a lot of people are already expressing some sense of grievance about, or at least some sense of grief about, I think, in some ways. So my question is could you run the numbers on that and give us some idea?
We did.
You did?
We did.
Okay.
We had numbers on every scenario that we were looking at. The problem with that one, Carrie, is if you look at your map, and I'll reference the map since we have it, if you kept Jefferson and Franklin on the south side and Jackson and Stangl on the north side, where would you suggest that pink group go to school? I'm gonna guess Valders if we did that. Because it's not, we're not gonna push neighborhood kids away from Jefferson or Franklin.
Monroe is going from 232 to 300 and some.
But remember, those are ideal numbers for elementary schools. And I think it's also important to point out on the north side, south side issue is we have to put schools where our population is. That's the very essence of neighborhood schools. And when it's no different than a congressional map when you're looking at this, in that the reason that gold section and pink section are so big, it's because they don't have that many kids living in them anymore. All of our kids are living in the green and in the purple. You know, those are our biggest areas of population, up to and including that little spot above the north part of the green. So we've run all those and we can run the numbers, but the really issue there is where, with that scenario you posed, where would the pink students go to school? And we can't figure that out. So if somebody could, let us know and we can run it, but I don't know how that would work.
I know semi-termite similar.
Yeah, if it's a question about what he asked.
Where's the population growth? Where are
You
we?
can go ahead with the question if it's related, yeah.
Our population density at this current moment is in the center south of our town. If you were to look at it overlay on a Google map, which we do have, with the density, you're looking at where those smaller boxes are.
Did you say growth? Like,
Growth.
where
Where are we going? Oh,
where are
sure.
You said you had talked with.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So the major in progress housing development would be over on that northeast side where that old mall was. And there are gonna be homes built there. There's also been conversations about some potential residential expansions on the southeast corner of the city potentially. It's not something that's in the works or have been, like, no one's bought land or did anything as far as I know. But that is something that I know of is something that's being talked about. As far as that in city, a lot of the other stuff that we've seen is happening outside of the city limits as far as, construction, subdivisions and that sort of thing. But our school-age children aren't living in those houses. If you look at our numbers of free and reduced lunch, you are seeing our population density as a district coincide with where the cheapest houses are. That's just the fact of where we're at right now. And so we need to make sure that those areas are basically covered, and that's what this plan does, is it puts the schools where the kids are. But it also has balance and room to grow. Because if you remember, one other thing as part of this plan is we're using the Riverview building. If there are population shifts, we could easily pivot back to that building if we needed to use it on the north side of town. Right now, we don't. We don't need it.
Other questions on Carrie's?
I guess it's a kind of a map question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why was Wilson chosen as 5-6 and Washington 7-8? Is that balancing of numbers again?
You want to answer that?
Wilson's capacity is a little smaller than Washington's, so given the size that the number of students that projected to roll through for next year, Wilson's capacity is a bit smaller.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, my question's on staffing, but we'll do that later. Chris, you're up.
Okay, I have 4. Number 1, on slide, I know, I'm telling how many we go around. Relax.
I have
Take a deep
6.
breath. Okay, we're gonna repeat 6 times, you're gonna be okay. And I'll sit through the last 2. Okay, so on slide 6, we talk about closing and selling one building, and we talk about decommissioning another. So what's the difference? I just want to understand what the two.
So the term close and sell means that we would
Close and
move,
sell.
we would move right away as quickly as possible to work with, in this case, the city, of course, because we jointly own that property with the city. In terms of Jackson, there's a lot of wheels in motion with selling property, up to and including the fact that we want to put this place on the market. So one thought was with Jackson is that for 1 calendar year, we would idle the building. If the board wants to sell it or do something differently with it in that time, fine. We were just saying, there's going to be a lot of things in motion here, and holding on to that building for a year isn't really a detriment to anyone in our.
Okay, thank you.
But if the board wanted to move quicker on doing something with that, we certainly can.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yep.
So based on Chris's question, is the Jackson building part of where offices would go if we sold this building?
That's a good question. So if this building were to sell, the only thing that our team talked about is we would really just want 2 things. One, wherever we go, we all go together. Because one of the faults of the original plan of selling this building is that it would have moved our team all over the place. Which if anybody knows anything about efficiency or teamwork, that's really not all that good of an idea. So we need to be in one spot. It is a possibility, although there will be excess room at the Riverview building. Even though we're gonna have some daycare usage on the current K-5 side, there will still be a number of rooms, plenty, for what we would need there as well. So that's another possibility. There also may be some other possibilities within the district that we could look at. And we would definitely want to put the plan and a proposal together. If the board acts to sell, we would have a complete plan in place before we ask the committee to go through that process, that we would ask the facilities and finance committee to look at.
This is related to, so I'm not losing my turn. This is related. Seeing this how special education and alternative education seems to have reached a phenomenal group or a decision with UWGB, is it possible that this building in your offices in that same rental package could just move out there?
Yeah, if they have the space, that would be the thing. And the other thing is we were quite impressed with the initial conversations we had with them. Not only what we think it'll be for our kids, but also it it was a good price point for us. So it could be. I would say anything we own is an option, and then also, oh, and by the way, the other one was that we want more windows than there is.
There are lots of spaces now.
It's almost nothing.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Hey, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Does decommissioning for 1 year impact our Moody rating? Maybe it's.
I wouldn't see that as impacting our Moody rating.
Okay. Versus selling it?
Oh,
Yeah, well, I mean, but nobody, like, it's there, the heat's on, you know, to keep it going. I mean, I wouldn't be concerned about our Moody's rating. I wouldn't be concerned about our insurance any more than what I'm currently concerned about.
Jump on that question though. Do you recall the experience we just had with property insurance? This also will help us tremendously. Remember, we saw a huge jump from about 200,000 to 800 and some thousand to property insure our buildings. Decommissioning these two buildings will drop that price tag, and then they also want us to update them when we do capital improvements. That will also help drive those costs down and savings as well.
Thank you.
anything else? Keith, question?
This is for Heidi. One of the things and one of the advantages for being an old member on the board was 11 years ago when we moved, during the Holzman administration, when we moved Riverview, which was all kindergarten, back to the elementaries, there was great concern about the lack of collaborative education, because at Riverview, everybody was kindergarten and everybody collaborated, and educational opportunities of shifting and things. Talk to me a little bit about that collaborative effort that you mentioned at the elementary system with adding more than one section. And if this is to come to fruition, is there a chance that those people that worked at Riverview and made that transition to our other buildings could form some kind of group to help these people with the transition of going to a new building? You know,
So the people that have been through it could help with advice and things for the people that are going to be going through it?
sure.
Yes, we talked actually about that. We talked about giving those people a voice to help us with, you know, what didn't go well last time, so that we can not make those same mistakes again.
Awesome.
Um,
And so then, and the additional question is the collaborative effort. So now you're talking that we're gonna have a building and there be 3 third grades rather than 1, or 3 fourth grades rather than 1. So these people are gonna have the same thing as Riverview had back 11 years ago before they were moved out, correct?
Yep, chances to collaborate, have more people to even share kids during intervention and those kinds of things. We would have most, I think of the 4 schools, there would be 3 or 4 teachers at every grade level based on the numbers that we've run already. So yes, much greater chance for collaboration.
Okay, thank you.
What are the implications for, I hate the phrase non-core classes at the elementary level? So I know we've had issues before with Madison, a teacher would be teaching there on a Tuesday morning and not there again until a Thursday afternoon.
This just eliminates that, which is fantastic. Like right now, we do have traveling staff. It's an issue every year. It's a challenge every year. It's been really hard for Madison because like this year, they have 3 different people providing art, music, and Phi Ed. So every day there's a different person there. They're not really a part of the staff. They come and they go.
And the student population would be strong enough to support.
We would have full section
Of
art,
Phi Ed.
music, and Phi Ed teacher at every building. That's consistent. Yep.
So that kind of relates to what Keith was asking. One of my questions on that staffing is, with closing these 2 schools, is there a way to take advantage of whatever was working at Madison, working somewhere else? And within those, I know within Jackson, having had kids go through there are some areas that are really strong. Teachers work very well together. And how do we keep those groups of educators that have done something well together when we move them to the levels? Is there a way to somehow and I'm sure Riverview has the same thing, where there's team teaching or teachers in the same grade level doing a good job, is there a way to keep them somehow together so they can continue that sharing?
We have a staff survey that will be, HR will be sending out, and we talked about adding to that survey, teachers being able to, they get to say what grade they want, they get to say what subjects they want, they get to say what building they want. And now we've added we're going to add a component to that survey where they can request to be with a teacher, like a teaching partner that they currently have. So we're going to do our very best to honor all of those things. Can't honor all of them, we know that, but we're gonna do our very best to keep people together that want to be together.
I just like the idea of what you just said of asking that question and honoring the service that they've done over the years, you know, be them a newer teacher or be them somebody that's been here, that they've worked a long time and done something well with other teachers to try to keep them together. Thank you.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Can I follow up on your
Yeah.
question?
Yeah.
So those requests, will those requests be looked at and granted based upon seniority or based upon the building principal's choices? How exactly will those requests be determined as to whether or not they're fulfilled?
Stacy's gonna take that.
Yep, I'll take that one. So
I would expect that.
obviously our goal is to give everybody a preference. And make sure that's something, we know that, you know, if we ask for 4 things, we're probably not gonna be able to give you all 4, right? But we're gonna do the best we can to give you what your top choices are. In terms of decision-making about placement of positions, we'll follow our professional handbook in terms of if we have to do any reductions or if who gets to choose whatever what. It's laid out in our professional handbook. The steps like seniority is a part of it. If you've had anything disciplinary in your file is a part of it. Licensure and certification is part of it, right? Like we can't put somebody in kindergarten who can't teach certified to teach kindergarten. So we just have to make sure we look at all those pieces to make sure we're, first of all, that we're in compliance with licensure. That's my biggest thing probably. And then again,
Mine too, so thank you.
yes, we don't want those dings from the state. So, but again, I think our goal is to come up with a way that we can get people at least one of their top preferences.
Yeah.
Back to your, you want to keep those people together if they were, for example, Madison. They do have a very good academic rating. Not just keep them together and move them to one school, but how do we expand it to another school? If we had an effective PLC, how do we share that knowledge and skill and ability?
One of the things I've been going to PLCs at the schools with principals to do some coaching with them. And one of the things that within a building, you have all sorts of varieties of effectiveness with PLCs. And so I think by bringing our schools together in this way, I'm hoping that we're going to have outstanding PLCs, because you might have a team at one school, you know, 1 or 2 teachers that are coming from one school to join another team, and there could be some real strong PLC work happening with parts of that team. And so I do see this as being something that can create strength for us, you know, across the board.
In the work that's already being done this year, we're providing professional development specifically for our principals, which is one of the reasons Heidi and Katie are going to do observations with them, is that really there's coaching of coaching, which means we're really looking at, you know, what types of questions and feedback our principals are giving their PLCs, because they're going to have a huge impact on their growth in their schools. But what is also happening here is that our principals are getting together and talking about what is happening in their schools, what are their teams that are being successful, what are those common denominators that are causing that? And that's already starting right now, but it should only enhance by having less schools to do it.
I'm going to ask like Keith, that didn't count as my question.
It was related. David, did you're go. Okay, yeah, you're up.
So, I only have 2 left, I think. First, can you share the feedback from the staff and parents, even students of those affected? Have you gotten any of that back? What are our biggest concerns so far? I'm hearing neighborhood schools from some. What are they saying? What are they nervous about?
So it's only been a day, right? So I haven't learned all that much. But last night we had a great group of parents, a couple of them are even here, where we met with PTO, PTA leaders from across the district, as well as our special education advocacy group. And really, one of the reasons we want to do that is, first of all, we want to honor their leadership in our district. They're doing some great things to support us and our kids. And really, as I told one of the parents, they said, "Are you really going to change your mind because of these listening sessions?" And I said, "Well, it depends on what, right? Like, we've crunched the numbers. I think the recommendations on building closures are the recommendations on building closures. You probably can't argue with what we've come to the conclusion on as far as logic and facts. However, even from our last listening session, there were 2 or 3 parents here who asked questions that we legitimately said, we have not considered that. And we were able to incorporate it in. So what I'm expecting, and to get a better handle on that, is we're gonna host that listening session Monday, and we're gonna have some information that we've collected thus far to help clarify if there have been questions submitted through the process that we have. But we're also gonna find out a great deal that night, because in addition to asking questions, people are gonna be able to just sort of give their thoughts. So I'm anticipating getting, a good amount of feedback there.
So we could potentially get some
Yep. But I mean,
solutions to our challenges.
Sure,
in
to the challenges, yeah. And I will say that thus far, I mean, the concerns are, one of the reasons we did this in the order of operations that we did it was that the true ideas of the committee, as far as teaching and learning, like K-4 elementaries, 5, 6, 7, these things were fully vetted before we announced anything about school closures. So we really felt like we've hurdled over some of that stuff, and now we're really just getting into the nitty-gritty of those recommendations and what to do.
Anybody else on that?
Question.
You're up.
I appreciate it. It does seem like you've gone down every rabbit hole possible.
We've tried.
But I'm gonna take you on one.
All right.
Slide 10, increased co-curricular opportunities. So right now, Wilson 8th grade basketball team, Washington 8th grade basketball team. At the new Washington, are we going to be allowed, probably in our conference, to have 2 8th grade Washington?
Yeah, so
And then,
it's not really a conference at that level. They
Yeah,
just
you're
sort of independently schedule. So we'll be able to have multiple teams, and what we would advocate for is we run as many teams as we can, as the number of kids who are signing up. would
so we're
indicate.
not gonna eliminate any
Correct.
opportunity. Here's my question,
Good question.
gym space.
Mhm.
So maybe we would be back over to Wilson to use that for basketball, or where are you having all these?
Have the better gym.
So there would be basketball in each facility. However, they don't have to run at the same time. 5th and 6th grade basketball is quite different than 7th and 8th grade basketball as it comes to scheduling and where those kids even play.
Yeah.
So one of the things we're doing right now with our elementary is that they run them independently in these, 4 to 6 week sections. But the beauty of it now is they're not doing it independently at the different schools. They're gonna be able to do it together. And so they'll be able to have their different teams within their learning community and play potentially at a completely different time than the kids at Wilson will need to play. Therefore, it would open up gym space. The other thing I would say is back in those very early days, I coached 9th grade basketball at Washington Junior High, and I loved every minute of it. But what we had there is a schedule that had to accommodate not only boys, but girls in 3 grades. And so it's just a matter of, scheduling and making sure that we're paying attention to that. But an opportunity to potentially expand gym space by running not concurrent basketball seasons for both kids,
We
or
also
both
have-
grades.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, you're
The
fine.
opportunity, many of our sports teams, middle school and high school right now, go to our neighboring elementary building. So Jefferson's in super close proximity for a practice space.
So it's not a problem, it's a opportunity.
Yes.
I like that.
Mr. President, does co-curricular and electives join one question, or is it 2 separate questions?
It's one question. One is academic, one is sports. Go ahead.
It isn't, no, it's not sports, right? This is about electives at the Washington seventh and eighth grade, so I guess this goes to Kate or whomever. But you talked about, you mentioned more opportunities to increase our electives. During the past two administrations, even starting with Mr. Holzman and Mr. File, the middle school elective process of having electives, band, choir, orchestra, drama, going back to what we used to have as one of the most powerful foreign language programs in the entire state, was decimated to every other day, and all of those wonderful things that our district was noted for. Because I think research will say, the more you're involved, if you take a foreign language, your English skills and your reading skills are going to be better than ever. But when you decimate those electives and you narrow them down, that also decreases productivity. So I guess my question is, do you see, or does this plan really think that we're going to get, and hopefully get back to a point where we can bring back these electives to feed our high school and have a continuum of services? And also in the eighth grade, go back to where we have advanced math kids. They can take algebra at that grade level, like we used to, start their math track very, very early and really excel in math all the way through school. That had been taken away. Everything was general math. Are we going to get to the point with this configuration to continue or start going back to those elaborate programs? I guess to both of you.
Go into her question.
Yes.
Okay, that's it.
While you're ahead.
By shifting, and, truly upholding fifth and sixth grade curriculum as the state requires and elective opportunities for students, we have the opportunity to take the elective or, non-core teachers, that FTE or those staffing positions, and move them to the 7-8 building so that we have wide variety of opportunities for students. So one of the constraints of the middle school model is that it just doesn't allow for elective choices. So it's traditional middle school. It's something that everybody that runs a traditional middle school model, a challenge that they face. One of the difficulties in that is that there has to be a rotation of certain specials in sixth grade. So then again, we're getting back to that operating under different bell schedules and different class schedules that become challenging. With this opportunity, our department chairs are already dreaming and scheming about what we could do to have a schedule that allows for world language to be taught on an everyday basis. That our music division, instead of having our fifth and sixth graders participate in orchestra and band before school, we would have music options during the day that would allow students to choose and differentiate between orchestra, band, and choir right away in that fifth and sixth grade level. We also, right now, because we have limited elective opportunities and offerings, our students tend to have an elective in their rotation that is not a preferred elective. And that creates behavioral challenges. It's not great for students in engagement when you're in a course that you're not super interested in. So by allowing for some more choice and creating those opportunities, we will be able to support students in having what they want as part of their school day, which again should increase engagement and achievement and all the good things that come with having those parts of your day that bring preference and joy to your day. And yes, we still do have algebra in eighth grade for students, but we would be able to expand beyond just math advanced offerings into other core opportunities and areas, because we'd have some flexibility to do that.
With possibly more than one section.
Correct.
Advanced English, advanced math. We could start
And
that.
equitable opportunities. Right now, some of those opportunities, because of staffing constraints, aren't available in one middle school and they are available in another middle school. This eliminates those inequities between our two middle buildings and creates opportunities for all of our students at those grade levels in both of our buildings.
Dr. Trask.
Okay, I have a kind of question. But, being me, I have to You know, it seems to me that the 5.6 / 7.8 is a fairly big and potentially disorienting kind of process. But I'm the only one on the board that was on the board when Success for All came up, and I kept asking for, come on, give me the data. You know, in a profession which seems to live and die by the data, I thought, well, come on, give me the data and give me comparable examples, et cetera, et cetera. And I kept getting, you know, from the administration then, material that was produced by the Success for All Corporation, which of course, you know, flattered itself immensely. And I never did get any of the hardcore information that I sought. I've read the enhanced, material on why the new arrangement is a good one. And that includes, you know, the fact that West De Pere, Kimberly, and Little Chute run these programs. They're fairly affluent school systems. Are there any other ones that are less affluent?
Yep.
More comparable to ours that do this? And could we get the data on how it is impacted learning and the well-being of kids?
Yep, Menasha.
Okay.
And when we share report card data next week, you'll see all of the comparables to Menasha, their achievement data, because they are very similar to us. They have one building, 5 through 8, separate wings of their building. That's very similar in size to us, very similar in demographic, very similar in free and reduced lunch, all of the things. So you'll see.
So how long have they been doing this 5, 6, 7, 8? Okay.
I can find out.
But long enough that they produced a kind of a district, you know, an indication of how it's had the
Yeah, I
impact.
can get, we have that comparable data for you, so.
Yeah. So I was the only one that voted against Success for All, and therefore was the only one on the board that was right. So I want the data here so that I know how to vote on this sucker.
Any other questions related to that?
To Success for All? No.
Houses.
Thank you.
The 5, 6 schools, will they be organized by house? That's all I needed to say. Thank you. Chris, you're up.
My question? Okay, this is a two-part question. First part is very short. I just want to make sure that I understand, using a modern analogy. If the board approves this plan, then the following schools are not voted off the island, right? It would be Franklin, Jefferson, Monroe, and Stangl, correct?
Correct.
Those would be the elementary schools.
Correct.
Okay, so here's my question. Do we have plans to redesign traffic patterns around these 4 schools to make them more friendly for the modern, highly transported students?
I've already looked into that, and I haven't dug into it too deeply, but definitely, yes.
So kind of.
Yes.
All right.
So the other part,
Concern of
there were some recommendations made as part of the CISA 10 study.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
around
Yeah.
That. Certainly, when we're talking about, again, just using the scenario, if the board approves $6.6 million of funds that will be able to be redistributed amongst our priorities, safety and getting kids in and out of schools is one of those. So that is a potential use of the dollars that essentially we would save from the closed schools that we could invest into those spots for our district and our safety of getting kids to and from. Now, what I will tell you is I get a chance to see in action our great crosswalk folks. For example, this morning I was over at Jackson School, and when I left Jackson School, there were 1, 2, 3 people that I saw with stop signs at very busy intersections, including Waldo Boulevard from there. And so, you know, what we lack for in infrastructure, we certainly take great care with the people to assist our kids to getting to school. So I don't want to, you know, alarm people that we're not safe. We are, but it's that the infrastructure around some of our old schools need updating.
Yes,
to be
absolutely.
safer for our pedestrian kids.
Related to that question, do we have any idea? Because I'm a neighborhood school, walk to school guy. But I also realize that many, many more families now just take their kids to school and drop them off. Do we have any data on percentage of kids that are driven to school? You know,
So here's what I would show you, and let me just look 1 second here, and I have some information. So this isn't exactly what you're looking for, but I think it gives you somewhat of an idea. Let's go to some neighborhood schools. These are the number of kids who ride the buses. Monroe, 83. Franklin, 47. Jackson, 39. And so those are just some ideas of how many ride bus. Now, what I would tell you in terms of drop off is, I don't have percentages and I don't know, other than a survey, how we would actually get to that. However, by observation, we have lots and lots of parents dropping kids off at school.
I think their teachers always know
Yeah.
Yes.
who's getting picked up and who needs to get on the bus, right? Dean's not.
I drive by Jackson
Yeah.
and it's busy.
Yeah.
It's,
Their teachers
you
complain
really
about
have to
that.
slow
Yeah.
down.
We can get that. A lot more than I used to.
anything else on this? Keith, you're up.
Stay out of your way, sir.
This is really quite quick. I remember in the facilities committee or the finance committee last year, we have a class of special education, I guess back to Kate, that's at Cambridge Hall or the old LTC. Clark Bridge, thank you.
At Cambridge.
And I think last year, I looked in the finance report, that's $28,000 a year?
32, I thought.
28.
28.
28, that's what I thought it said. Is that another program that we can save the money and take that out of Clark Bridge and move over to the UW and save?
That would be the plan. So all of our GED alternative high school programs that are currently housed at the Stengel Building, and then the 18 to 21-year-olds that are at Clark Bridge Hall would all move over to UW Manitowoc. And then for essentially a very similar cost at that building to house all of those programs, as opposed to the rental of one classroom at Clark Bridge.
Okay, thank you.
So that's reflected on the financial implications?
Not directly, not that part of it.
That's
we
not
have to-
signed sealed,
yeah,
that's not
yeah.
signed, sealed and delivered
Yeah,
until
yeah.
the vote happens, so.
Yeah, my question was along those lines, my last one, so.
Mary, you're up.
Well, no, so it's ask it.
I'm gonna ask it. 'cause
Oh,
it
I'm
was-
sorry.
Along those lines with the Clark Bridge, I've gotten some feedback that, you know, attendance is important for our report cards, right? So our specials, our GEDO2 rate, are they included in that? And our
Attendance reporting?
alternative pathways, they're all included in that. At the UWGB Manitowoc, to me, walking in, hey, I'm going where kids are going to college. Is our attendance better than, say, Clark Bridge?
So our students at Clark Bridge Hall are primarily students with most significant disabilities that have opportunities because they have an IEP to extend programming until they're 21 years of age. Their attendance is pretty great. Regardless of where they will be. What this does is, you know, it is important for students of disabilities at any age to be around same age peers. So what this does do is it puts them in a facility around non-disabled, same-age peers and have access and opportunities to participate in programming there for them. So it's a very appropriate setting with increased opportunities for them to be around kids that are non-disabled.
And for a group that does go to UWGB, our current way that Kristen Lee runs the GEVO2 program yields very high participation and attendance.
Well, even a collaboration,
Yeah.
when you're having all those
Yeah.
work like that together. Oh, great opportunities.
Yeah.
Okay, Mary, got anything else?
Yep, slide 8 referenced a balanced instructional report, support, and listed 5 areas. Specifically EL, reading, math, and instructional helpers, right? Those that support the programs. As you were talking, I wrote down the word space for them, question mark. So I'm understanding on a footprint, there's room for our little people, our students, and their teacher. Are there spaces, or are we going to have a reading and a math person stuck in a closet somewhere?
We have spaces. There are a lot, like, I was at Monroe. I was actually at all the elementary schools today. At Monroe, I was just looking at, as we were walking through it, all the little spaces, like for the speech teacher or for and there are, right now what we have is an entire classroom that has an EL teacher in it. She doesn't need a classroom. She needs a smaller, she's got like a group of 4 kids coming in. What we just have right now is lots of people in these really big rooms that they normally wouldn't be in. I don't think we're gonna have anybody in closets.
Gary?
On 5, 6, 7. How many teachers do we currently have teaching 6th and 7th grade students at the same time? Because we'll have to cut them. Now, depending, might only have to cut them in a quarter because they might be doing 3/4 6 and 1/4 7. Or half.
I don't understand the question. I'm sorry.
How many teachers currently are teaching both 6th grade classes and 7th grade classes? Because
I have to defer to both of the building administrators to answer that question. As we talk about like what if this would pass and then creating sections and those kinds of things, we have to look at certification areas and decide what we need. But, for staff that currently are teaching 5th grade, moving to this model will likely reduce the number of subject areas that they teach. The goal would be that they would specialize in 2 subject areas as part of a house team. So they may be a literacy and a social studies teacher or a science and a math teacher, which will be different than what their current elementary assignment is. But we will defer to building administration and then building leaders to help navigate what all of that looks like and subject areas that are being taught, those kinds of things.
so we do not envision anybody being a traveling teacher because they teach 6th and 7th grade.
We would
It would be one or the other.
likely.
Okay.
Thank you. There's just such nuances and differences between the, So, so the goal would be Wilson staff or Wilson staff. There would not be, even with elective teachers, for the most part, not a lot of traveling needed between buildings anymore.
That would be the goal. Thank you.
Keith?
I don't have any questions.
Seriously?
He combined some.
I was able to tag on to it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got the information, we've asked questions. Now, here's my question to the board. Do you want to open this up and discuss it now? Would you rather wait to see public input, public concern, and then discuss it at the 12/9 meeting?
I'd rather listen to the public before we, so that we know all.
No, we're not voting tonight, but do you want that discussion to come after the public has input on the first meeting or at the board meeting before, or do you want to hash out and discuss stuff now? It's just asking because
What is the opportunity for folks that cannot make it on Monday night?
They could come on the 12th to public input. The 9th, I'm sorry, 12/9. They could come that night and have input at the board meeting.
Are you still doing the Google form? Where you
Yeah.
can-
Yep, we have a process in place to collect all that. Yep.
So we should have those results. We should have results from the Monday night. And the superintendent has told me that if there's an overwhelming number of people on that Monday night, he would set up another one before our meeting. The public could come again.
Yeah, if we feel like there's a need. we
Yeah,
certainly
if there's a
can do
need, we'll do that. Chris?
I think what I'm hearing from folks is sometimes finding a babysitter for an evening meeting is an extra burden on them. So perhaps a daytime
Sure, we can do a
could be
daytime one.
considered, that their children are at school and that it would be a little easier for them.
Sure.
Thank you, sir. My preference would be that we give adequate time for the public to both get the information and then ask their questions, hopefully to board members, share their perspectives, hopefully to board members, and then we could get together and look at it. Now, all of you know, I am the last person on the planet that advocates for yet another meeting. However, I do not think the regular meeting is the best choice with the closeness of it. And I think perhaps a special meeting, even if it's not on the usual special meeting Tuesday, might be better. That's just my perspective.
And that's one of the things that the superintendent and I have talked about, that on the 9th, with his meeting on the Monday and possible another one, and then 9th, if we have a lot of public input, having been in government a long time, I would hope that we might take that public input in, consider it, process it, and then instead of having that special meeting the week of Christmas, is that on the calendar? Am I right there?
It would be the 20.
Could we go a week earlier?
Sure.
Like a week right after the 9th, could we get together on that Tuesday? Take all that public input we got, all that information we got, you've got to consider if there's public input, we have to think about that. However, if the meetings don't bring out a lot of people and there's not a lot of people on the night, maybe then that opens up an opportunity to vote on it because they appreciate the work that's been done. But you've got to give people an opportunity for input. Keith?
Well, I agree with everything you said, but having been through on a board and in a community that has gone through one major switch to even the middle school, this board cannot drag out the decision. It's not fair to the staff. It's not fair to the people in the buildings. It's not fair to the public. It's certainly not fair to the teachers to, I think, have to wait through the holidays wondering where they're going to be next year after the new year starts. I think it would be just horrible on our part to keep delaying a conversation and a vote to let the staff know, because they are the ones that are impacted. It was very difficult when we did it 11 years ago, because Mr. Holzman was going to piecemeal it. He was going to do this for a while and this for a while, and the staff said, don't do that to us. Make a decision, get it done. And yes, it's going to be a chaotic semester before we all move or wherever the schools are going to be going. The buildings and grounds people were working their bodies off to get these buildings ready. But it really came as, don't drag this out, you guys. We as a staff, one, it's going to be tough, it's emotional, but we have to be prepared, start working with our groups, as Heidi explained, start having these transition teams, start working and getting it done. So I'm in favor of meeting again, and I'm in favor of listening, but I'm not in favor of dragging this thing out for 3, 4, 5 more weeks before we vote.
Well, I had just assumed we were going to take this up on the 9th. Is that too soon, you think?
Well,
because the public input is on the 1st.
Right.
Correct, I agree.
And in my experience, there are many people who don't go to those meetings. They come to the board meeting because that's where they see the board.
Oh,
And they're speaking to the board and they feel that's more, this is what I think, rather than having an informational meeting.
We are advertising it though as a board
Yeah.
meeting, and we're letting people know that their feedback will be given to.
And if Ed or Mary said, if we open up a day listening session, I get it. There's been plenty of opportunity. They can go online, they can call anybody, they can call any of the directors. I get that. I agree with Carrie. The ninth is very important, and I'll reiterate, we can't drag this out for the staff. It's not fair to them.
Do you feel the 18th is too late?
The 18th of December?
December.
I think it's getting there.
Tuesday.
And
the
then plus
18th.
during the holidays, you think people are gonna
I'm
watch
sorry,
the meeting
16th.
during the holiday, you know?
So the 16th of December would be the date we would decide. Is that too late, or is that?
I would only put it as a contingency. If these listening sessions and this feedback, I guess I don't see why Lee can't and the administrator cannot. A lot of us may be able to attend, not all of them, but if we're listing them as meetings and we're all attending and we're all listening.
Wouldn't one solution be, because it's really the collective board that decides this. So what if on the 9th, you have your input session, you have any other questions that remain, and if the will of the board is to make a motion and act, make a motion and act. If it's not, then schedule your 16th meeting. I mean, that could be one way you do it.
I mean, if there's no input on the 9th. Okay, yeah, we could discuss and vote. Any other input?
Thank you again to this team.
yeah, really.
I know
Thank
there
you.
were some Saturdays and Saturdays, and I appreciate the heavy lifting you've done.
And one more extension to the thanks to those who brought the recommendations to begin with.
Yeah.
And then extending it to make the hard decisions with you.
Chris.
Okay, just to get to my fourth question. Do we have a clear understanding in when we're going to have a recommendation about Lincoln, new high school, rebuild Lincoln, et cetera? Because that is the number one question I am getting out in the real world.
Yeah, so Mr. Hacker is here tonight, and he's facilitated these conversations around the state. Mr. Hacker, if we were to reconvene our committee, let's say over the summer months, perhaps in July, what would you recommend to the board as a reasonable timeline to potentially have some options reported to them?
Yeah, so as we've dialogued about this a little bit, just in prep for this type of question that's come up, this process, depending on the types of options that emerge, sometimes that process moves more quickly, sometimes it takes a little bit longer. If, as an example, the options were, we love where we're at, we love our two schools for our intermediate and middle, they're the right spots, they're the right architecture, we just want to make them like new, that's pretty clear, right? As soon as we start saying, nope, we want it to look different, be somewhere different, be under one roof versus under two separate roofs, the options start to build very quickly, okay? And with that, you need to start to look at site capacity, right? You know, can we fit everything on one site? If not, where would what might that site look like? As you just noted, if this, as it extends to start to think about Lincoln, what does that mean for Lincoln? A whole nother layer to the dialogue, right? Because now we're talking about a very clearly identifiable icon in the community as Lincoln being the high school. And when that shifts, a whole separate set of dialogue around what does that mean? Are we shifting how we use Lincoln? Are we not using Lincoln anymore? Is Lincoln a middle school? Is it right? That dialogue starts to build, okay? If in fact the path is towards a significant investment, which there is a need for, right? Whether it's in our two existing buildings or in response to something different, that likely is a referendum path, something, right? And I don't use that word lightly. I fully understand what that means, but that's funding mechanism that school districts have. So if that starts to emerge as an option, this process needs to start to line itself up with a referendum cycle, which is a whole separate set of dialogues around what is the right cycle and what is the process to get feedback from the community via maybe a survey as an example, and start to work towards what hopefully is a community strengthening referendum that looks at what secondary education looks like in the district for a long, long time. Okay, so long answer short, right? This could be a 3, 4, 5 month process to start to allow those options to emerge very quickly. And then we'll have some dialogues about what does that mean? Okay, and you know, where might, what might next steps look like?
Okay. Okay, so for clarity, I hope, December 1st, and I'm kind of looking at the future meeting dates. December 1st is the LHS Auditorium public meeting, public input. Curriculum, instruction, personal policy committees on the 2nd. There is no finance committee that week. There's nothing on the agenda.
You guys can pay me later.
So if the curriculum committee and the personnel committee does not have anything, those could be canceled also.
Well,
we have, but I think there are things.
Yes, we have public agenda.
Move to move our stuff to the finance and facility.
All right, next.
Motion not accepted.
Then, December 9th is our regular board meeting. There is a public input meeting at Lincoln, and that night of the meeting, if there is little public input on this issue, we could take up the approval of this at that meeting. Okay? Yeah.
Point of question. Is there going to be a daytime public input session scheduled?
Why don't we see what turnout we get and what the potential for that would be?
It isn't that folks should feedback, or how
We would push it out on all of our, we would throw it out on our.
see what kind of interest there is in it.
IC. Well, generally you can tell by the events themselves, so, but I mean, it's not a big deal to do a, 90-minute thing and schedule it for next week, Thursday, for example, at 2:00. We'll look at our schedule, we'll put something out there as an option, and invite people in at that time.
So we'll try to do that if there's a need. And then on the 16th of December, we would have a special meeting if needed. And that would be the night we would make the decision if we don't do anything on the 9th. Is that clear? Screw that up?
So
No?
we're suggesting the 23rd special meeting gets moved to the 16th.
Right. Get it away from that.
DV.
Yeah. Yes.
May I ask the superintendent a clarifying question?
Sure, certainly.
On December 2nd?
Yep.
No, first, on December 1st.
Yeah.
You are allowing public questions, public commentary,
All of it.
either, both?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll lay out some, expectations, and then how it'll get formatted would be, we'll have 2 microphones, and then folks can form lines behind the microphones, and we'll go alternate back and forth, and questions, comments, concerns, we'll do the best we can to answer them, or respond to them, and if it's just comments, we'll accept those and listen to them, and move through it that way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And there are opportunities online to
Yep.
give input.
Yeah, we have a whole page dedicated to this on our website, Our Schools, Our Future, and there is a place where you can put in your questions that we can add to our frequently asked questions document, which we already started back when we basically began this process with the recommendations from the committee.
So I'm comfortable with the way that we're taking input. I'm comfortable with the way that the plan came forward from the committee. And I'm comfortable that the public will have a say in what we're doing. And I think when we cover that and we cover the wise use of their tax money, I think we're doing the right thing. So, yes.
I am completely thankful to the team for putting this all together. This is tremendous amount of work, great information. So thank you for all of your work, your efforts, what has gone into this, and proposal that has some merit, and thank you for all your hard work.
Just remember that they do that every day. They really have, and we're lucky with the leadership we have. All right. I think we have nothing else. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. We are adjourned. Thank you for your time, guys. Thanks, everyone.